Two tails, one head, yin yang. Two heads, one tail, yang yin. Sounds like a cowbell. More cowbell. Two tails, one head, yin yang. This is the trigram lead, fire, and light. Three tails, old yin. Two tails, one head, yin yang. Two tails, one head, yin yang. Our bottom trigram will be read as solid, broken, solid, which again is Li, fire, and light. Li is fire and light, both inner and outer. As an inner light, she is consciousness at its most lucid and unclouded, holding things together in the mind, perceiving their differences and connections, and discerning the underlying patterns of relationship. And as well as vision, Li is the light that makes things visible, the power to cast light on things, spreading clarity and the awareness of order. Li is the middle daughter, living in the south, the region of midsummer and the burning sun. Our top or outer trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as broken, solid, solid. This is Zen Thunder. Nope. Gzun, wind or wood. Gzun is both wind and living plants, whatever penetrates, spreads, and grows, shaping itself to the space available or shaping that space to its own nature. She is responsive flexibility, sensitively improvising and adapting. Like the wind, she can always find a way through because she never creates any resistance, and so her influence is subtle and gradual, but far-reaching. In the family of trigrams, Gzun is the eldest daughter, gentle and submissive. She belongs to the southeast and to late spring and early summer. Gzun, wind or wood, above Li, fire and light, gives us hexagram 37. Once our fourth line transforms from old yin to young yang, that'll give us a top or outer trigram for our supporting hexagram of solid, solid, solid. This is the trigram Qian Heaven. Qian is suprahuman cosmic law. Enduring, he determines the nature and development of all things, from the movement of the stars to the cycle of the seasons, to causing each individual seed to grow into its own kind of plant. Heaven is creativity in its pure form, the force that drives change and what endures within it. He confronts us with truth in what it demands, both as the absolute law of nature and as the challenge of individual calling experienced as an inner law. He is both the awareness of what to do and how to be, and also the power to act on it. Heaven is Father, found in the northwest, the realm between autumn and winter, when the buds set and seeds fall to earth. Kuan heaven above leaf, fire, and light. Give us hexagram 13. We'll be getting the titles to our hexagrams from I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's very alchemical. Hexagram 37, I-ming calls people in the home, governing the inner, refining the self, mastering the mind, turning the attention inward. And our supporting hexagram 13, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 13 is sameness with people, mixing in with the ordinary world, concealing illumination, assimilating to others. We will start with Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. It's a nice introductory I Ching commentary. Hexagram 37, Hilary Barrett calls people in the home. When we approach the I Ching to consult the oracle, the question we bring to it will always have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. Key questions. Where are the boundaries of the home you inhabit? How are you building inner and outer relationships into a home? What kinds of growth does this environment support? Oracle. People in the home. A woman's constancy is fruitful. The old Chinese character for home shows a pig under a roof. A home is where people rear a pig together, sharing wealth, work, and value. People in the home cooperate in their shared space and invest in it together, as in a family, workplace, school of thought, or culture. And within the structure it provides, they can recognize and understand what is valuable. To create a successful home, you need to have the constancy of a woman. Steadily, over time, your work creates a space in which all can grow freely into their natural form and find their place and their connections with others. You allow space for new things to enter and grow, becoming part of the whole inner ecosystem. You keep the space for living in. Image. Wind comes forth originally from fire, people in the home. A noble one's words have substance and her actions are consistent. A strong fire in the hearth will create its own drought. The light and warmth at the center of the home translating into far-reaching influence in the world. It represents a constant living awareness that pervades the structure and makes its presence felt in everything the noble one says and does. Also, the fire needs a free flow of air to burn cleanly and steadily. Real words and consistent actions keep it alight. Sequence. People in the home follows from hexagram 36, brightness hidden. Injury on the outside naturally means turning back towards the home, and so people in the home follows. The home is a refuge. Inner light that had to be hidden away from the outside world is secure here and finds expression. When you are unappreciated or unseen, you turn back and connect with like-minded people. Pair. People in the home forms a pair with hexagram 38 opposing. Opposing means outside. People in the home means inside. These two hexagrams describe a single landscape. Every inside must have its outside. Inside you find your fellows, those who share your vision. Outside are the foreigners who see differently and do not belong in this home. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 13 people in harmony. Key questions. What are the unique contributions? Where is the common ground? How will your life change if your group expands? Oracle. People in harmony in the wilds, creating success. Fruitful to cross the great river, a noble one's constancy bears fruit. People create harmony with one another where they are of like mind and find common cause. They come out of the walls of their villages to forge alliances in the wild country. That is, they seek out common ground where they can meet, beyond the familiar boundaries that usually define the limits of people like us. This means radically expanding the whole idea of who we are. Such fellowship is usually created between people, but it can also take place within an individual. For instance, between inner selves, or between apparently unrelated traditions and ways of knowing. There is harmony when these are brought together in inner conversation to create strong alliances. There is strength and energy in alliance. People in harmony can commit themselves further, take greater risks. They can cross the river and enter new territories. Once there is agreement, it's worthwhile to follow the vision tenaciously with the constancy of a noble one. Image. Heaven joins with fire, people in harmony. A noble one sorts the clans and differentiates between beings. Find the art in here interesting and cool. Imagine the fire reaching up towards the night sky, joining with the stars to cast light on the many clans gathered around it. A noble one has the clarity of vision to see the shared nature all the groups have in common, and also what is shared only within each individual group. And how this distinctiveness comes from their clannish roots. Harmony between people will not come about by forcibly amalgamating the clans. To disarm their natural defensiveness, the noble one needs first to recognize and respect identities different from his own. Sequence. People in harmony follows from hexagram 12 blocked. Things cannot end with blockage, and so people in harmony follows. The exclusive, divisive mindset of us versus them must be replaced by a larger sense of fellowship. Human awareness lights up the world, perceiving and creating the possibilities for co-creation and overcoming the drift apart of hexagram 12. Pair. People in harmony forms a pair with hexagram 14, great possession. Great possession means crowds. People in harmony means connecting. There is power in groups and alliances, but the emphasis for now is on the human experience of harmony and connection rather than on what might emerge. Next, we will look at our changing line 4 of hexagram 37. Which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself. It takes precedence over all other elements and is the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Changing line 4 of hexagram 37, people in the home. Enriching the home, great good fortune. Riches are stored up in the home. It is good to invest more there. What enriches the home? Harmony, sound friendship, and a wealth of exchange between people. Next, we will look at what Liu I-ming has to say in his Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It is nice and alchemically natured. 37 people in the home. For people in the home, it is beneficial that the women be chaste. Explanation. People in the home means there are people in the home. This is the path of governing the inner. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is wind, entering, and below is fire, luminous. When illumined, one can follow the Tao, and by following it, one can gradually develop the illumination. Receptivity and understanding are necessary to each other, like wind blowing fire so that fire grows with the wind. Here is a way to govern the home, so it is called people in the home. This hexagram represents refining the self, mastering the mind, turning the attention around to gaze inward. It follows on the previous hexagram, advance. In advance, illumination grows from receptivity. It is the work of advancing the fire and employing illumination. To advance the fire and employ illumination, it is necessary to first illumine the inner. Illumination of the inner is refining the self. Refining the self simply means refining the yin within oneself. What yin is this? It is the human mentality. In the human body, the vitality, spirit, soul, psyche, and intent all belong to yin and all take orders from the human mentality. When the human mind is calm, they all are calm. And when the human mind is aggregated or agitated, they all are agitated. Refining the self simply means refining away this human mind. When you refine away the human mind, the mind of when you refine away the human mind, the mind of Tao spontaneously becomes manifest. When the mind of Tao becomes manifest, the mind is illumined. Then the vitality, spirit, soul, psyche, and intent all transform into guardian spirits of truth. The human body is like a home. The human vitality, spirit, soul, psyche, and intent are like the people in a home. When you refine the human mind and produce the mind of Tao, the vitality, spirit, soul, psyche, and intent each rests in its own position and each discharges its own affairs. Joy, anger, sadness, and happiness are all harmonious and balanced, like a family being orderly. This is represented as the benefit in women being chaste. Women consider preservation of chastity valuable. Refining the self is like a woman preserving her chastity and not getting engaged. Then the true yin within oneself will become manifest. When the true yin is manifest, the open awareness of the mind is unobscured, and outside things cannot get in. Thereby one can gradually progress in an orderly manner to seek the yang of the other to the benefit of all. In the body of the hexagram, the second line is empty, below, while the fifth is solid, above. When one empties the mind, one can thereby fill the belly. The benefit for female chastity is precisely that whereby one affects emptiness and preserves calm as a strategy to establish the home and business. Therefore, practitioners of the Tao are cautious and wary and do not let any yin energy reside in the heart, even subconsciously. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 13, sameness with people. Sameness with people in the wilderness is developmental. It is beneficial to cross great rivers. It is beneficial for a superior person to be upright. Explanation. Sameness with people means other people and oneself are as one. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is heaven, strong, and below is fire, luminous. Employing strength with illumination, making illumination effective by strength. Being truthful within and adept without, developing oneself and others as well. It is therefore called sameness with people. This hexagram represents mixing in with the ordinary world, concealing one's illumination, skillfully assimilating to others. It follows on the previous hexagram, tranquility. In tranquility, yin and yang match each other, strength and receptivity are united. When practitioners of Tao reach the point where yin and yang are balanced, strength and receptivity are unified, and the spiritual embryo is formed, then they can merge with the ordinary world, hiding their illumination, to cultivate advanced practice. But to mix with the ordinary world, concealing one's own light, requires great impartiality and impersonality. This is a matter of being selfless. If there is no self, there are no others. When there is no self or others, the sense of others and self leaves. When the sense of others and self leaves, then others are oneself, and oneself is identified with others. This is like the skies covering everything, like the sun's shining everywhere. One can thus return others and self to emptiness, being like others in the wilderness, as it were, this assimilation being unfailingly developmental. The wilderness is a vastness where there are no people. Being like people as though in a wilderness means there is no image of self, no image of others, no image of people. If one cannot be the same as other people with a true heart, and can only be the same as them in favorable circumstances but not in adversity, only in times of ease but not in danger, then this sameness is not true and sure, and is ultimately not developmental. When the text says it is beneficial to cross great rivers, it means that if one can go along through situations of danger and difficulty, then where there is no danger or difficulty, wherever one goes, it will be beneficial. Every ordinary person in the world assimilates to others, but most people do so for personal reasons, and do not do it correctly. They assimilate to those they should be the same as, but they also assimilate to those whom they shouldn't be like. This is not the meaning of sameness with people in the wilderness. Therefore, the benefit of crossing great rivers is beneficial insofar as one is upright like a superior person. The superior person assimilates based on correctness, not on sentiment. What is correct is only a matter of what is right and true. Sentiment changes while truth has no change. If one assimilates based on truth, then there is no sentiment. When there is no sentiment, the ideas of others and self both are transformed. Only truth is to be preserved. Inwardly, one can thereby develop oneself, and outwardly develop others. Seeing afar by means of illumination, acting directly by means of strength, strength and illumination both working, firmness and flexibility balancing each other, inwardly not losing oneself, outwardly not hurting others, round and bright, clean and bare, one stands in the midst of myriad things without being inhibited by myriad things. One is within yin and yang without being constrained by yin and yang. Next, we will look at the changing line 4 of our primary hexagram 37, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself. Takes precedence over all other elements and is the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Hexagram 37. People in the home, changing line 4. A rich home is very fortunate. Explanation. With flexibility seeking firmness, using firmness to balance flexibility, neither clinging nor rejecting, gradually introducing guidance. By emptying the mind, one can fill the belly. Wealth is renewed daily, and one accumulates spiritual riches and celestial treasure. That great fortune does not stop at selflessness. This is flexibility using firmness in refining the self. Emptying the mind and filling the belly is a method of moving energy from the upper dantian to the lower dantian. So where the third eye chakra is to where the sacral chakra is roughly. And this place that we store energy in that sacral chakra area or the lower dantian is like storing money or wealth. It's a place where you can keep that energy safely in the body, and it can be used by the organs and all that kind of stuff when you cycle it through your body with something like the microcosmic orbit meditation, which is an ancient Taoist meditation. The commentary section we will also read. That's where I'm going with that. 37 in the back is called Members of a Family. Wind above, fire below. Wind emerges from fire, members of a family. Thus there is factuality in the speech of superior people, consistency in their deeds. Members of a family means the people of one family. Above is wind, below is fire. So fire is inside and wind is outside. Wind emerges from fire. When fire burns, wind spontaneously arises. Wind and fire are of the same family. This is the image of members of a family. What superior people see in this is that just as wind and fire are in the same place, wind rising from fire, similarly others and oneself live together, and so what one can do for others is based on oneself. If one is upright oneself, others will naturally be influenced. Therefore, when superior people speak, they do not speak in vain. There must be something factual for them to speak about. When they act, they do not do so at random. There must be something consistent about their deeds. When one is careful about one's words and prudent in one's acts, those with whom one lives will also be factual in speech and consistent in deeds, and be members of a family with oneself. Members of a family does not only mean people of the same house. It means all those among whom one lives and with whom one works. When there is factuality in speech, words being based on actualities, then there is a point, there is evidence, that speech will accord with reason. When there is consistency in deeds, action having a conclusion, then there is true practice and genuine application. Those deeds will accomplish something. When one speaks factually and acts consistently, without flaw in word or deed, inwardly not losing oneself, outwardly not hurting others, then those with whom one lives and works will be influenced without anything being said, just as wind spontaneously rises when fire burns. Words are the voice of the mind. Deeds are the tune of the body. If practitioners of the Tao speak with factuality and act with consistency, then the mind will be upright and the body will be disciplined. Nature and life will have a dwelling place. Furthermore, they will be in confluence with heaven above and earth below, and will be members of a family with heaven and earth. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 13, sameness with others. Heaven above, fire below. Heaven with fire, sameness with others. Thus do superior people distinguish things in terms of categories and groups. Sameness with others means being the same as other people. Above is heaven, below is fire. Fire is the sun. The sky covers everything. The sun shines on everything. The sky and the sun are in the same place, impartial and illuminating. This is the image of sameness with others. What superior people see in this is that when practitioners of the Tao deal with people, it is important to be able to be the same as others, yet it is most important not to assimilate to them arbitrarily. So they distinguish them in terms of categories and groups. Categories and groups are internally similar and united, like different classes of people, each having their own groups. Superior people see each group as a category in which all members are the same. Distinguishing means differentiating. Things are things that are right or wrong, good or bad. Superior people must distinguish things. They dare not arbitrarily consider all categories and groups the same. This is how they model themselves on the impartiality of heaven and distinguish things in emulation of the illumination of the sun. When one is impartial and also lucidly aware, there is no one in the world one cannot be the same as, and there is nothing in the world that is arbitrarily considered the same as something different. This is because superior people assimilate by means of the Tao, not in terms of mentality. They assimilate by means of reason, not in terms of personality. This is what is called harmonizing without being influenced, associating without becoming a partisan. This is how the sky and sun are the same toward things, and this is how superior people are the same with others. Next, we will look at James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes, which I've left links to in the description box below. He's a practitioner of the Tao himself, and he has synthesized several English translation I-ming commentaries into one helpful place, and has left helpful editor's notes throughout and the notes and paraphrases at the end. He also puts quotes in here from Carl Jung often, and things like the Kabbalah. Hexagram 37, James Dekorne calls the family. Other titles might be family life, clan, home. James Dekorne, I thought I found his email address, and I emailed him telling him that I was doing these readings and he should check them out, but I have not heard back. But it's possible that I got the wrong email. But if James Dekorne, if you ever watch this, thanks, man. Your synthesis of commentaries is phenomenal, as well as all of your added notes. Can't thank you enough. Other titles: family life, clan, home, linkage, dwelling people, the psyche. A quote from D.F. Hook: may indicate a situation where the family can and should help. Judgment, leg. For the regulation of the family, what is most advantageous is that the wife be firm and correct. Wilhelm/Baines, the family. The perseverance of the woman furthers. Blowfold, the family. Women's persistence brings reward. Ritzema/Karcher, dwelling people, harvesting, woman, trial. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of living and working with others in a common space. It emphasizes that caring for your relation with those who share this space and for the space itself is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to dwell with people. Clary 1, for people in the home, it is beneficial that the woman be chaste. In the human body, the vitality, spirit, soul, psyche, and intent all belong to yin and all take orders from the human mentality. When you refine away the human mind, the mind of Tao spontaneously becomes manifest. Wu, the family indicates that it is advantageous for a woman to be persevering. This is a hexagram with its emphasis on women. Both constituent trigrams are feminine. Hence, those who endeavor to be firm and correct will have advantages. The image. Leg. Wind rising out of fire, the image of the family. The superior man speaks the truth and is consistent in his behavior. Wilhelm/Bain's wind comes forth from fire, the image of the family. Thus, the superior man has substance in his words and duration in his way of life. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes wind rising from fire. The superior man's speech is full of substance, and he behaves with constancy. Lu, the wind coming out of the fire symbolizes the family. The speech of the superior man should have substance, and his conduct be enduring. Ritzema/Karcher, wind originating from fire, issuing forth, dwelling people. A Chunsu, or chief son or superior person, uses words to possess beings and also movement to possess perseverance. Commentary, Confucius/Legge, in family, the wife is in her correct place in the lower trigram and the husband in his correct place in the upper. That spouses occupy their correct positions shows the correct relationship between heaven and earth. The parents rule the family. Let the father indeed be father, and the son, son. Let the elder brother be indeed elder brother, and the younger brother, younger. Let the husband indeed be husband, and the wife, wife. Then the family will be in its correct state. Bring the family to that state, and all under heaven will be established. Legge, the written Chinese character for family simply means a household, or the members of a family. The lesson of the hexagram is the regulation of the family, affected by the cooperation of the husband and wife in their several spheres, and only needing it to become universal to secure the good order of the kingdom. The important place accorded to the wife is seen in the short sentence in the judgment. That she be firm and correct and do her part well is essential for the family's proper regulation. The wife is represented by line 2, and the husband is her proper correlate in line 5. The relationship between heaven and earth is analogous to the relationship between husband and wife. The second sentence of the Confucian commentary, more closely rendered, would be that in the family there is an authoritative ruler is a way of naming father and mother. This means that the assertion of authority in a family should be a correct balance of force and gentleness. Anthony, the family symbolizes correct relationships between people, the family unit, the spiritual family, the sage and the student, and human groups generally. When these most basic relationships are correct, the world is made correct through the force of inner truth, through cultivation of the feminine component of our nature, and through persevering in a virtually menial position from our ego's viewpoint, so that our work can come to fruition. All this means to forego striving and self-assertion and to allow ourselves to be led, while persevering in gentleness and devotion to our path. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. For the correct regulation of the psyche, what is most important is that the ego must be firm and correct. The superior man lives his allegiance to the ideals of the work. Applying the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, the relationships within a family are analogous to the relationships within a city-state or a kingdom, and vice versa. A quote from D.H. Smith in Confucius, society centuries before the time of Confucius had been organized on the basis of family. In the early days of the Chao dynasty, fiefs had been allotted to the feudal lords in a system of planned colonization. These feudal lords, linked to one another and to the royal house by marriage ties, took their families, retainers, peasants, artisans, and soldiers to form self-sufficient colonies based on an agricultural economy and governed from well-fortified walled cities. These large family groupings of the nobility were preserved only so long as the relationships of parents to children, brothers to brothers, and masters to servants were effectively controlled. If the ideal city is like a family, then the analogy also holds for an individual. Here the comparison goes directly from city to psyche. A quote from Plato in the Republic. Have we any greater evil for a city than what splits it and makes it many instead of one? Or a greater good than what binds it together and makes it one? Then is that city best governed which is most like a single human being? Psychologically interpreted, the hexagram of the family symbolizes the psyche, and the Confucian commentary tells us that when its inner components all assume their proper roles and functions, then the work will come into fruition. All under heaven will be established. The identical idea has been stated in Gnostic thought. A quote from the Gnostic Gospel according to Thomas. Jesus said to them, "When you make eyes in the place of an eye, and a hand in the place of a hand, and a foot in the place of a foot, and an image in the place of an image, then shall you enter the kingdom." The husband is the analog of heaven or the self, and the wife is the analog of the earth or the ego. When the ego assumes its correct role as the magnetic servant of the work, then inner transformations can take place. I have paraphrased the judgment in terms of necessity of the ego to follow the dictates of the work, but one could alternately phrase it in terms of keeping emotional responses under control. For the wife to be firm and correct is to ensure that emotions, drives, and appetites are not allowed to make decisions. They are servants, not masters. This is the essence of the work, and arguably the most reiterated idea in the I Ching. A quote from R. Asiagoli in Psychosynthesis. The patient should be encouraged to use his mind through observation and discrimination to bring clearly into his awareness the irrational aspect of his drives and emotions, and also the possible drawbacks and harmfulness to himself and others of their uncontrolled manifestation. To act on the spur of an impulse, a drive, or an intense emotion can very often produce undesirable effects which one afterwards regrets. Therefore, he should learn, by repeated experiment and effort, to insert between impulse and action a stage of reflection, of mental consideration of a situation, and of critical analysis of his impulses, trying to realize its origin, its source. The 37th hexagram teaches us that the way to manage the emotions is no different than the proper management of a family. No wise parent can teach a child self-discipline by adopting the child's point of view. Permissiveness, either with our children or our own primitive drives and passions, is a sure formula for disintegration. The work demands that the ego hold the line on this issue. Indeed, it is the ego's only legitimate function. A quote from R. Asiagoli in Psychosynthesis. We are dominated by everything with which our ego becomes identified. We can dominate and control everything from which we disidentify ourselves. And our supporting hexagram, 13, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 13, James Dekorne calls union of forces. Other titles might be fellowship with men, the symbol of companionship, lovers, beloved friends, like-minded persons, concording people, gathering men, sameness with people, universal brotherhood, fellowship, community, united, human association, union of men, integration of forces, minor synthesis, cliques, concordance, to be in accord with, and confirmation. Judgment, leg. Union of forces appears in the remote districts of the country, indicating progress and success. It will be advantageous to cross the great stream. It will be advantageous to maintain the firm correctness of the superior man. Blowfold, lovers, friends in the open, success. It is advantageous to cross the great river or sea, to make any kind of journey. The superior man will benefit if he does not slacken his righteous persistence. Lu, fellowship of men in the open countryside, success. It benefits one to cross the great water. It benefits the superior man to continue his task. Ritsuma/Karcher, concording people, tending towards the countryside, growing, harvesting, wading the great river, harvesting, Chansu, trial. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of sharing a goal with others. It emphasizes that finding ways to cooperate with and harmonize people's efforts is the adequate way to handle it. Slothnacy, gathering men in the wilds, receipt, beneficial to ford the great river, beneficial for the gentleman to determine. Clary 1, beneficial for a leader to be correct. Wu, fellowship in the open is pervasive, etc. It will be advantageous to the Junzi who perseveres. The image, leg. The images of heaven and fire form union of forces. The superior man, in accordance with this, distinguishes things according to their kinds and classes. Wilhelm/Baines, heaven together with fire, the image of fellowship with men. Thus, the superior man organizes the clans and makes distinctions between things. Blofeld. This hexagram symbolizes heaven, the sun, and fire representing a pair of lovers. The superior man treats everything in a manner proper to his kind. An analogy based on the component trigrams between the sun and fire, which to some extent are of a kind. Wu, heaven above and fire below form fellowship. The Junzi, or chief son or superior person, distinguishes things by their kinds. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. In union of forces, the magnetic line has the central place of influence and responds to her correlate line in the upper trigram of strength. The hexagram takes its name from the upper trigram of strength, lending its power to the lower trigram of clarity and intelligence. This represents the correct course of the superior man. It is only the superior man who can comprehend and affect the minds of all under the sky. Leg. Union of forces describes a condition which is the opposite of the preceding hexagram of divorcement. What was there distress and obstruction is here a union of forces, but it must be based entirely on the good of the whole, without any taint of selfishness. The dynamic line correctly in the fifth place occupies the most important position and has for his correlate the magnetic second line, also in her correct place. The one female line is naturally sought after by all the male lines. The editors of the Konghasi edition would make the second line respond to all of the lines of the upper trigram as being more agreeable to the idea of union. The upper trigram is that of heaven, the lower is of fire, whose tendency is to mount upwards. This image suggests the fire ascending, blazing to the sky and uniting with it. All these ideas are in harmony with the notion of union, but it must be free of all factionalism, and this is indicated by its being in the remote districts of the country, where people are unsophisticated and free from the corrupting effects of urban intrigue. Although a union from such motives can cope with the greatest difficulties, yet a word of caution is added. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Connections are being made. If you are able to maintain your will, it is advisable to push for a synthesis. The superior man differentiates and prioritizes. He sorts and evaluates his options. This is another image of union, not the supreme union of hexagram number 11, harmony, but a subordinate union of forces within the psyche which builds toward an eventual grand alliance. The component trigrams show the union of strength and clarity, suggesting that a certain level of mental comprehension is involved. To receive the hexagram without changing lines is often a confirmation of your particular thought, saying in effect, you've made the connection. Comprehension, synthesis, involves making distinctions, analysis, a paradoxical process in which one must divide before one can reunite. This is the solve et coagula of alchemy. Thus we see the superior man in the image creating categories to bring about union. This is discrimination directed toward reclassification or rectification. For example, a heterogeneous mixture of vegetable and flower seeds is made meaningful when one sorts them into their separate categories. The disparate elements then become coherently united. In I Ching terms, each line obtains its proper correlate, as in hexagram 63. A quote from Plotinus in the Enneads: dialectic alternates between synthesis and analysis until it has gone through the entire domain of the intelligible and has arrived at the principle. Stopping there, for it is only there that it can stop, no longer busying itself with a multitude of objects, since it has arrived at unity, it contemplates. The Chinese name of this hexagram includes the word Zhen, which is apparently a difficult concept, since many philosophers have spent a good deal of energy in trying to define it. A quote from Wing Tsit Chan in a source book in Chinese philosophy, Zhen has been variously translated as benevolence, perfect virtue, goodness, human-heartedness, love, altruism, etc. None of these expresses all the meanings of the term. It means a particular virtue, benevolence, and also the general virtue, the basis of all goodness. Neo-Confucianists interpreted it as impartiality, the character of production and reproduction, consciousness, seeds that generate, the will to grow, one who forms one body with heaven and earth, or the character of love and the principle of mind. In modern times, it has even been equated with ether and electricity. Chu Hsi defines Zhen as the character of the mind, psyche, and as the principle of love, union. Interpreted in this way, we are enabled to apprehend the essence of the word love, which is union, becoming one with its object. I have chosen the title of Union of Forces to emphasize intrapsychic dynamics, which are not immediately obvious in Wilhelm's title of Fellowship with Men. For example, in dealing with questions pertaining to the work, the concept of ego states or subpersonalities is often relevant to the symbolism of this hexagram. A quote from J.G. Watkins in The Therapeutic Self. The human self has been described here as composed of different ego states separated by boundaries. It has been likened to the structure of political principalities. From clinical observation, we find that ego states can cooperate for mutual well-being, like allied nations against a common enemy. An ego state may become split, like East and West Germany, or fracture into many segments, like the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Ego states may become cognitively dissonant and hostile to each other, like Syria and Israel. In fact, the behavior of ego states within an individual is not unlike that between individuals, and between those groups of individuals called countries. Why should the behavior of human stuff not be substantially similar at all levels of its organizations? The evidence of self-division into ego states is significant, and an equally tenable hypothesis might be that the states and boundaries of political entities have been imposed by men on each other because these represent an externalization of the internal divisions in their own selves. This hexagram's shadow side reveals circumstances preventing the union of entities or forces, more than those conditions promoting fruitful affiliation. Note that only the first and fifth lines of the figure depict a positive synthesis. The first one is minor, and in the case of line 5, union is attained only after much struggle. Line 2 reveals a clique or faction situation opposed to the general welfare, and lines 3 and 4 are images of recalcitrant forces unable to either join or attack the alliance. The sixth line depicts a partial union, probably the most common outcome in general experience, which the Confucian commentary nevertheless minimizes. Out of 6 lines, then, only 2 describe anything like complete fellowship. I have received this hexagram without changing lines when the context of the question revealed an incestuous clique-type situation, so not all fellowship or union of forces is necessarily an ideal configuration. Next, we will look at our changing line 4, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here some places you may find yourself, takes precedence over all other elements, and is the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. It's 4:44 a.m. Alrighty, 37. Changing line 4. Leg. The 4th line magnetic shows its subject enriching the family. There will be great good fortune. Wilhelm/Baines, she is the treasure of the house, great good fortune. Blofeld, a well-to-do household, great good fortune. Lou, one makes the family prosperous, great good fortune. Ritzimal/Karcher, affluence dwelling, the great significant. Slofnacy, a wealthy family, greatly auspicious. Cleary 1, a rich home is very fortunate. Wu, this is a wealthy family with great auspiciousness. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, this is due to her docility and because she is in her correct place. Wilhelm/Baines, for she is devoted and in her place. Blofeld, this is good fortune. This good fortune is indicated by the position of the line, which symbolizes cheerful acceptance. Ritzimal/Karcher, yielding, located in the situation indeed. Cleary 2, docilely occupying its position. Wu, because its position is well taken. Leg, line 4 is magnetic and in her proper place. The wife is again suggested to us, and despite her confinement to the internal affairs of the household, she can do much to enrich the family. Yu Yen, in the Yuan dynasty, observes that the riches of a family are not to be sought in its wealth, but in the affection and harmony of its members. Where these prevail, the family is not likely to be poor, and whatever it has will be well preserved. Notes and paraphrases. Sue, the woman of the family balances the income and expenditures, enriching the well-being and peace of the family. The faithful steward performs the same service for public welfare. Wing, attention to details pertaining to the economy of the situation brings good fortune. Any attempts to further the well-being of others in a modest and humble way will be successful. Editor, this line restates the message of the judgment. Psychologically speaking, it reaffirms the idea that emotional energy under control and in its proper place is a great source of personal power. This is an image of the ideal role of the ego in relation to the work. A quote from Araya Kaplan in Jewish Meditation. Control of the emotions is a very important element of self-control in general. Often the concept of self-control conjures up the image of an emotionless, dry, rigid way of life. If a person is in complete control of his emotions, however, he can call forth any emotion he desires and is free to enhance it as he wills. Rather than be controlled by emotions such as love, yearning, or awe, he can control them. One can evoke these emotions and blend them together, painting every aspect of life with a rich palette of feelings. Control of the emotions can thus lead a person to experience a richer blend of feelings in his daily life than the average person generally experiences. James Dekorne breaks changing line 4 down into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, our emotions must serve us, not rule us. And B, the whole is enriched by the rectitude of one of its parts. We'll now get a randomly card-drawn verse from the Tao Te Ching while we sum the reading up. Our primary hexagram, 37, people in the home, shows wind or wood above, Xun, wind or wood above Li, fire and light. And these are both feminine or, female trigrams. They're daughters. And one is the elder, and so they kind of have a harmony to them in that sense. Often, if one of the daughters is not the elder, then there's not an obvious distinction between the two. One doesn't take precedence over the other easily, so they can be at odds. In this situation, they go together really well, like fire and wind. When fire heats up, wind is created. And people in the home shows that there's a situation where you have a home and you're sharing a space with people, be it a family or a society or people in a workplace. And it's the idea of keeping that in proper order so that it serves all the people. And Also, in Lu I-ming's Taoist I Ching, he talks about the different members of the family being particular virtues or traits. People in the home, what does he say here? Yeah, here we go. The human body is like a home. The human vitality, spirit, soul, psyche, and intent are like the people in a home. When you refine the human mind and produce the mind of Tao, the vitality, spirit, soul, psyche, and intent each rests in its own position, and each discharges its own affairs. Joy, anger, sadness, and happiness are all harmonious and balanced, like a family being orderly. This is represented as the benefit in women being chaste. Women consider preservation of chastity valuable. Refining the self is like a woman preserving her chastity and not getting engaged. Then the true yin within oneself will become manifest. When the true yin is manifest, the open awareness of the mind is unobscured, and outside things cannot get in. Thereby one can gradually progress in an orderly manner to seek the yang of the other to the benefit of all. In the body of the hexagram, the second line is empty, below, while the fifth is solid, above. When one empties the mind, one can thereby fill the belly, once again moving energy from the upper dantian to the lower dantian, the third eye chakra to the sacral chakra area, where it can be stored safely. The benefit for female chastity is precisely that whereby one affects emptiness and preserves calm, as a strategy to establish the home and business. Therefore, practitioners of the Tao are cautious and wary and do not let any yin energy reside in the heart, even subconsciously. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 13 was sameness with people, and it showed the idea of blending in, and it also had the idea of people gathering from different places all into the wilderness, and it meant not seeing people that it has the trigrams, Qian heaven above Li fire and light. And let's also look in Lu I-ming's Taoist I Ching about hexagram 13 here while we're at it. This hexagram represents mixing in with the ordinary world, concealing one's illumination, skillfully assimilating to others. It follows on the previous hexagram, tranquility. In tranquility, yin and yang match each other. Strength and receptivity are united. When practitioners, okay, so it's relating this hexagram to hexagram number 11. In Lu I-ming's Taoist I Ching, they do every other line that they relate the lines to. In Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future, she relates them to the one either directly previous or preceding or following. So she would relate hexagram 13 with 12 or possibly 14. But Lu I-ming relates it to, he even separates in the front the odd from the evens. It starts out with all the odds and then does all the evens. Not sure why they do that per se, but that's what he's talking about. He's relating this to tranquility, which is hexagram 11, which has Qian heaven below Kun earth. Let's see here. In tranquility, yin and yang match each other. Strength and receptivity are united. When practitioners of Tao reach the point where yin and yang are balanced, strength and receptivity are unified, and the spiritual embryo is formed. Then they can merge with the ordinary world, hiding their illumination to cultivate advanced practice. But to mix with the ordinary world, concealing one's own light, requires great impartiality and impersonality. This is a matter of being selfless. If there is no self, there are no others. When there is no self or others, the sense of others and self leaves. When the sense of others and self leaves, then others are oneself, and oneself is identified with others. This is like the skies covering everything, like the sun's shining everywhere. One can thus return others and self to emptiness, being like others in the wilderness, as it were, this assimilation being unfailingly developmental. The wilderness is a vastness where there are no people. Being like people as though in a wilderness means there is no image of self, no image of others, no image of people. Every ordinary person in the world assimilates to others, but most people do so for personal reasons and do not do it correctly. They assimilate to those they should be the same as, but they also assimilate to those whom they shouldn't be like. This is not the meaning of sameness with people in the wilderness. Therefore, the benefit of crossing great rivers is beneficial insofar as one is upright like a superior person. The superior person assimilates based on correctness, not on sentiment. What is correct is only a matter of what is right and true. Sentiment changes, while truth has no change. If one assimilates based on truth, then there is no sentiment. When there is no sentiment, the ideas of others and self both are transformed. Only truth is to be preserved. Inwardly, one can thereby develop oneself, and outwardly develop others. Seeing afar by means of illumination, acting directly by means of strength and illumination both working, firmness and flexibility balancing each other, inwardly not losing oneself, outwardly not hurting others, round and bright, clean and bare, one stands in the midst of myriad things without being inhibited by myriad things. One is within yin and yang without being constrained by yin and yang. Also, James Dekorne had a little bit of helpful information for these too that I would love to see and be reminded of. In the commentary section for Hexagram 37, Anthony says, the family symbolizes correct relationships between people, the family unit, the spiritual family, the sage and the student, the human groups generally. When these most basic relationships are correct, the world is made correct through the force of inner truth, through cultivation of the feminine component of our nature, and through persevering in a virtually menial position from our ego's point of view, so that our work can come to fruition. All this means to forego striving and self-assertion and allow ourselves to be led, while persevering in gentleness and devotion to our path. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of living and working with others in a common space. It emphasizes that caring for your relation with those who share this space and for the space itself is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time you are told to dwell with people. And then in our supporting hexagram 13, union of forces is what he calls it. James Dekorne does. I thought minor synthesis is another name it could be, or integration of forces. Talking about the titles that are very similar to psychic integration, that kind of an idea. So how this can be done in oneself. Universal brotherhood. Union of men, integration of forces, I said that, to be in accord with. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of sharing a goal with others. It emphasizes that finding ways to cooperate with and harmonize people's efforts is the adequate way to handle it. If I remember right, this one was the one where it was talking about the solve et coagula in Alchemy, the idea of dividing things so that you can then combine them. In the notes and paraphrases, judgment, connections are being made. If you are able to maintain your will, it is advisable to push for a synthesis. The superior man differentiates and prioritizes. He assorts and evaluates his options. This is another image of union, not the supreme union of hexagram number 11, harmony, but a subordinate union of forces within the psyche which builds toward an eventual grand alliance. The component trigrams show the union of strength and clarity, suggesting that a certain level of mental comprehension is involved. To receive the hexagram without changing lines is often a confirmation of your particular thought, saying in effect, you've made the connection. Comprehension, synthesis, involves making distinctions, analysis, a paradoxical process in which one must divide before one can reunite. This is the solve et coagula of alchemy. I never know if I'm saying that correctly. Thus we see the superior man in the image creating categories to bring about union. This is discrimination directed toward reclassification or rectification. For example, a heterogeneous mixture of vegetable and flower seeds is made meaningful when one sorts them into their separate categories. The disparate elements then become coherently united. In I Ching terms, each line obtains its proper correlate, as in hexagram number 63. To Hasid, okay, no, that's talking about that word. Yeah, so I like what I-ming had to say about, whoa, man. Oh, it's still recording. It said iOS whatever is not downloaded. I thought we got interrupted, thank God. Thank the Tao. The supporting hexagram 13, I-ming was describing it being something where when you go into the wilderness, you don't see people. So it's the idea of not seeing yourself and not seeing others. And so they're not being self or others. You're not making those distinctions. It almost seems like what's happening is there's this idea of being closed off in a family unit, and it said that this separates us from those outside. And then with people in harmony or our supporting hexagram 13, it shows we're bringing out from the different classified areas and mingling into a larger group and breaking down the categorizations that originally were there in order to remix into a better union. And in order to do that, walls need to come down, that kind of thing needs to happen. We need to look at self and other, if we want to talk about it ultimately as the same, being the same, and so that we don't see other when we see, another being. We see all of this as one thing. It's necessary to see things in terms of their categories and groups so that things can harmoniously dwell together and work together. But sometimes our categories need to be redefined. Also, our changing line 4 talked about there being treasure, and it had to do with the home. And let's see, a rich home is very fortunate, changing line 4 of hexagram 37, people in the home. Explanation, with flexibility seeking firmness, using firmness to balance flexibility, neither clinging nor rejecting, gradually introducing guidance. By emptying the mind, one can fill the belly. Wealth is renewed daily, and one accumulates spiritual riches and celestial treasure. That great fortune does not stop at selflessness. This is flexibility using firmness in refining the self. So in the home, if you're talking about yourself, emptying the mind and filling the belly would be taking what you have energy-wise and moving it down into, let's call it your vault or your safe of your home, and storing it there. And this energy, when we move it down from the upper dantian, kind of the third eye chakra area, to the lower dantian, kind of near where the sacral might be, we can store it there safely and use it to move around, to do the microcosmic orbit meditation, which is a Taoist meditation, and essentially is like imagining the sun rising behind you and coming up over you, and that energy in your body tracing that path. It rests for a while up above you, and then it goes back down, and this energy moving around goes through a lot of centers in your body that it can move that energy through, that sometimes it can get stuck in. So with having a good store of that energy, and also not seeing self, not seeing other, and coming out from our different family groups and reintegrating in a way where, yes, we honor categories to a degree, but at the same time, we see the arbitrariness of all categories if there's no difference between self and other. And things do need to harmonize and work well together, similar to all the people in a home, where each has their own thing that they do, and each is blessed and helped by each other in a well-run home or society or any kind of group, workplace, for instance. Even within the self, we can have integration where all of our various components that could potentially cause issues are working together for a greater goal and cause. And when we can do that in such a way where we honor the distinctions between things and support them, but also see through the illusion of there being separation, then it becomes less a matter of each man for himself and more a matter of helping to create a synthesis and harmony in yourself. If we do that internally, we can have it be externalized, but really all of this is just a giant organism that is seeing through all of our eyes. And so if we see things in terms of consciousness and sentience, and how it displays itself, and how we can work with it to come to a greater home, one where we bring out from the separate homes that each has into the wilderness where there is no self and other. We can honor both of those things, but we definitely need to have the perspective of all the people coming into the wilderness where there normally aren't people, and so we don't see self or other. And we can hopefully take the treasure that we can all have from that and place it where it's secure. If we're talking about the empty the mind, fill the belly, from the upper dantian to the lower dantian, especially if anyone's experiencing any kind of like issue with rising energy, like a kundalini like experience, you can store that energy there safely a lot better than have it burn you. And if you cycle it through with that microcosmic orbit meditation, that's really helpful. So I'd suggest those things if anyone's going through that kind of a situation. But yeah, anyway, I think that's sufficient. We will read verse 6 and 10 out of the Tao Te Ching. My copy is by Jiafu Fang in Jing English. verse 6. The valley spirit never dies. It is the woman, primal mother. Her gateway is the root of heaven and earth. It is like a veil barely seen. Use it. It will never fail. And 10. Carrying body and soul and embracing the one, can you avoid separation? Attending fully and becoming supple, can you be as a newborn babe? Washing and cleansing the primal vision, can you be without stain? Loving all men and ruling the country, can you be without cleverness? Opening and closing the gates of heaven, can you play the role of woman? Understanding and being open to all things, are you able to do nothing? Giving birth and nourishing, bearing yet not possessing, working yet not taking credit, leading yet not dominating. This is the primal virtue.